As a coach and an enthusiast of all kinds of archery and all types of archery, I've got a video for you here today where I'm going to cover a few different things with my compound here, specifically how I draw the bow back. And I'm going to show you something very concerning that you have to pay attention to in order to not create injuries with a compound if you're trying to mimic form you may have already learned with another style bow. So like I said there in the intro, I'm an enthusiast of all types of archery and I enjoy coaching archery as well. Specifically, I'm an expert in the KSL shot cycle, which teaches you biomechanically efficient ways to shoot a single string bow. There is ways that you can use it to shoot a compound, and I know a lot of coaches that do teach single string archery like recurve technique, Olympic style recurve, bare bow, something like that, or even traditional, how to properly shoot using the KSL shot cycle. But those that come to them with compound, they may encourage them to do a few different things, and it will lead to the most common injury that is found in archery, at least in my opinion. So the technique I want to show you has a very particular way of actually going through the shot process and pulling the bow back. You're going to see very good alignment, which puts this shoulder, and this wrist almost in a straight line when I'm at full draw if you were to view it from overhead. That makes it very efficient, and it allows me to shoot higher draw weights with much less effort, at least much less physical, muscular effort, because the structure of the bones is actually holding the main weight of the bow. So let me shoot an arrow here for you first, and then I'll explain. So basically what I'm looking at is how I'm drawing the bow back, and I'm using very specific ways and very specific positions. If you're wanting to know more about these actual positions and how I use the KSL shot cycle, I'll have links down in the description below and a card at the top up there to a playlist for you, so you can check that out as far as the basics on how to apply this technique. But also I do have a book down in the description below. It's called Total Archery. I'll have links for that in case you're interested. But essentially, set position is right here where I'm at rest, the arrow's in the bow, and I'm ready to go. Full draw would be obviously at anchor, but there's a position in between that you may not have seen before, but I'm going to call it out now for you, and it's called set up position right here before I pull back. Essentially, it's a halfway point between rest, set position, and full draw, so it's right now, right? And the number one goal is to try to already start to get into alignment. And if you look from behind me and you pay attention to my scapula, where it is relative to my spine in my set up position, I'm going to pause it right here. And what you're going to see is essentially the scapula kind of coming towards the spine and poking and protruding out away from the body. I don't do that on purpose because that's not my main focus. My main focus is actually my shoulders getting into alignment before I actually pull the bow back. But this is a very foundational movement to actually set up shooting the shot with a single string bow with much more efficiency. You use big muscles, much larger muscles, the muscles in your back, to pull the bow back instead of using the smaller muscles in your arms and in your forearms to actually muscle that thing back so you can shoot with a little bit more efficiency. And overall, the shot is very easy and very fluid and very simple to do. And this is stuff that a lot of high-end archery coaches that specialize in the KSL shot cycle will teach you how to properly do with a single string bow. Now, before I pick up my compound, I want to describe to you what injury we're actually talking about here today. The most common one, in my opinion, that is an actual injury to an archer, and that is called impingement syndrome. Essentially, inside the subacromial space, there's a lot of very important things. I'm just going to give you a brief 10,000 foot overview of the actual injury. You can talk more to a physio if you're interested in learning more about it, but essentially it's in the front of the shoulder, kind of where the actual long and short head of the bicep crosses over through this space here. And when you close the subacromial space off, you cause impingement syndrome, and very painful and very sore in that area. And it actually can lead to overuse injuries like tendonitis, tendinosis, and things that will help eventually prevent you from shooting as many arrows as you'd like to shoot. So you do not want to have that happen. There's a few things that can cause the subacromial space to close off. One of those is bad posture. That closes the space off, but also anything overhead. So that means anything in this kind of position, it's really risky to actually have a risk for impingement. So anything that is above 90 degrees to the ground, level to the ground like this, not 90 degrees, 90 degrees to my body. Anything above this, you start to close that subacromial space off, and anything forward as well closes that space off too. So when you're shooting a compound, you're gonna see me now draw my bow back, and it's gonna look very different than the way I pull back my single string bow, my trad bow down there. And what you're gonna see is a very different way on how I actually pull this bow back. Now the way I execute the shot is very similar. The overall shot process is very similar, but you'll notice that when I go from set to basically a non-existent setup, you'll see that my scapula is in a totally different spot. And I'm gonna pause it for you as I get to that position. And you'll essentially see that at the top of my lift, which kind of, sort of, could be considered the set up position, it's not really there. You'll see that the scapula is really far away from the spine and very high up. So when I'm drawing from this upper high position like this, it's just how I efficiently pull back my compound. Just about everybody who shoots compound a lot draws from this position. It's also single string war bows draw from this position as well, and this is the secret on how they don't get injured, unlike people who try to use a KSL shot cycle drawing that kind of bow back, also drawing compounds back, is that there is no set up position. I'm not trying to get into position with my scapula and bring it down with my compound. Because if I do, when I go from here to here, I'm jamming and closing off that subacromial space. So when I'm in this position up here, drawing from this upper position, my collarbone is actually elevated. And my scapula, this is the key part, follows the actual head of the humerus, follows the collarbone up and away from the spine, and then I pull down into the position that I get to at full draw with my compound. Now that is the secret. That's how you prevent the actual injury of impingement, is to not try to retract and depress the scapula in this upper forward position here. It's also how people do it with Olympic style recurve or other single string bows. People that get impingement will often draw from this upper and forward position here, but they're not letting that scapula follow the actual collarbone up and forward. They're trying to keep it down and retracted towards the spine. So I'm gonna quick put my glove back on and shoot one more arrow here with my single string bow, so that way you can actually see what I'm talking about, and I'll give you the two examples here really quick. So the number one way that people get injured, as I was saying with recurves as well, is to draw back from this position here up and forward, but instead of letting their scapula be up and follow the actual collarbone as I am here, they try to depress, retract, and pull it down and towards the spine. And so position one here is actually quite safe. I wouldn't call it ideal. Position two here is actually much more risky. And you'll see from that position there that when I go to draw, that subacromial space is just slammed off, and you're gonna cause lots and lots of discomfort in that shoulder. So what I do is I keep that space open going from set to set up, and then go through my entire shot process, and it keeps my shoulder healthy, happy, and protected. So for those archery coaches out there that do profess and teach the KSL shot cycle, when you have somebody that is shooting compound and you're presenting any information to them, especially to any sort of group of coaches, you have to specifically call out to them and say, this setup position is not to be used for compound in any way, shape, or form. It does not exist. The overall mental step could be there if you want to use that as far as a check-in point of balance to prevent leaning back or something, but from there is no position to get into as far as where the shoulders are, alignment, or any of those things. I just specifically call it out and say, this is not a step for compound. Don't even worry about this. Just draw your bow back get to the load position, and then we'll talk from there. I find this information incredibly important to talk about, especially if you're explaining this to other shooters, other coaches, because if you ignore these facts, it doesn't do anything. If you do address them, as I've said already, it's going to give yourself more credibility because people will believe that you have more of the entire picture to offer, which I think is extremely important and lacks and is missing in the archery community as a whole. So as I shoot one more shot with my compound, just pay attention to my scapula, how it goes away from my spine, and then it comes down once I get to full draw. And just like that, I could shoot thousands of arrows a week and have no injury with this shoulder, with my compound, and I'd be fine because I know how to do it to prevent the injuries, because I've had those injuries myself and I've seen so many people do this. So many people have been recommended to do this with a compound, and I cringe every time I see it. Just make sure you're not one of those people, and I hope that if you're a coach, you include this information in your seminars so that way people can be better educated, better prepared, and prevent more injury in the future. Hey, if you got value out of this video, if you wouldn't mind, please do subscribe, hit that notification bell down below, and also give it a thumbs up. Please consider supporting this channel by sharing these videos or checking out many of the different links down in the description below. Many of those are affiliate links. I've got a couple of different discount codes down below. Genuinely, if you click those links before you shop there, it helps this channel out immensely, and I can't thank my supporters enough. Without you, I wouldn't be able to produce this content, at least not to this level. So thanks.